Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another installment of The First Line. My name is Masso Marchiano, and I'm here today with my co-hosts, Taylor Snyder and Michael Zingroni. How are you guys doing today?
I'm doing great. We had an awesome, kind of awesome weekend of college football. We'll get to that later, though. There's a lot to talk about. I'm here with my two best pals in the whole wide world. And as always, it's great to be here on TFL. Mike, how you feeling today?
Oh, I'm feeling great. New show format, a lot to talk about, a lot of college football this weekend. It's fun. Dive in some NFL and have a great show ahead of us, boys.
All right, well, let's dive right into it, right into college football. The first week has finally kicked off with the Ohio State versus Indiana. But let's talk about a more important game to us because it was more local. The Temple-Notre Dame game. Now, guys, we already knew walking into it was going to be a tough game. Temple going away to Notre Dame. You have a rotation of quarterbacks. You don't know who to pick yet. And it was just not easy. And the stats showed it. Notre Dame with 606 yards compared to Temple's total of 330. It was a pretty lopsided affair. So, Mike, let's start off with you. What are a couple notes that you want to take off from this matchup right here?
Our defense looked bad, and that's with like 4 exclamation points bad. I mean, it wasn't good. Like you mentioned, Mass, we gave up 606 total yards. Notre Dame had more rushing yards than we had total yards. I mean, Notre Dame usually has a good offensive line and a pretty decent run game. I respect that. I knew it was going to be tough for our defense, but I thought our defense would look a little better than this. I mean, Jeff Collins was an SEC defensive coordinator with a couple teams. I thought he was coming over here, and we've been used to the top 10 defenses in the country the last few years. So I was just missing that toughness, that kick that we had, because we were getting thrown around, and they were just running the ball right down our throat, and the game was over as soon as it started, pretty much.
I think a very important note to take from this is the first time starting Logan Marchi, quarterback for Temple, went 19 for 35, 245 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. A pretty okay performance. I think the accuracy was wrong. The arm strength is definitely there, but he needs to work on the accuracy.
A lot. Yeah.
Taylor, I would like to know, what do you think on this quarterback performance? Do you think Temple should move on from it? I'd also like to know what else you thought about the matchup.
Well, it's funny because when I was watching that game in the first half, Notre Dame got out to a really strong lead. It was 28-3 in the first half right away. And as Mike mentioned earlier, what concerned me the most was the way Notre Dame drove it up the field on that opening drive. It took, correct me if I'm wrong, 4 plays? Two plays. Brandon Wimbush, by the way, got to give it up to that kid right there. Also making his first start. Yeah, at Notre Dame. And
came out really
a
really
lot
strong.
of people I don't think understood that. It wasn't just about Logan Marchi being young. It wasn't about the new Jeff Collins system at Temple. Notre Dame was dealing with some baggage too. Now, granted, they were, in South Bend. Touchdown Jesus. I mean, it's hard to win in South Bend no matter what team you are. But I guess my point to get to here, as far as the quarterback situation goes, I mean, 245 yards, 2 touchdowns, no mistakes. I do like that a lot. And honestly, when you got a brand new quarterback in there, and there was always this speculation, with Philip Walker gone, like who's going to be the guy? All summer we asked, who's going to be the guy? And we found out, we didn't even know, when we were watching that game and they announced the starting lineups, we didn't even know Marchi was going to be under center. They listed everyone except the quarterback. And when the kid came in, he did look a little shaky. He missed I think, what was that, end of the first quarter. Mm-hmm. He missed a nice lob pass that would have been good for 7.
He missed a lot of passes. He had a north of 50% completion percentage, but he has the arm strength, but it just looks like his first start at Notre Dame in South Bend, trying to pull off an upset. A lot of people riding Temple off, as we're getting closer to the game. So it just looks like he was really trying to rip the ball in there, do a lot, when, realistically, he didn't have to do all that. He just has to get accuracy behind the ball. He was getting too much speed behind it. He was trying to do too much. That's what it looked like to me. But, I mean, he didn't make that mistake. That's what I'm happy with. At least we know, okay, we lost that game surely because our defense is awful. Not because, our quarterback turned it over and our defense couldn't do this and that. It was just the defense. At least we don't have any more question marks at the quarterback position. I think Marchi right now, he looks like the guy to me, but I would still like to see the other guys. I would like to see what Centino has. I want to see what Newtile has. I want to see what they all have. I mean, we have Villanova and UMass coming up, but let's see what they have a little bit, just so we know. Yeah. Just so we know we have the guy under center.
And as we were talking about, I mean, it's hard because you're on the road and you're playing Notre Dame. We have history with Notre Dame. We played them in prime time on a Saturday night back in the College Game Day era when College Game Day came to Temple two seasons ago. So it's not like this was the first time playing Notre Dame. But I couldn't agree more, Mike. I thought for sure if you're asking me personally, I mean, when I was watching that game, I thought we should have tried out new tile. Heck, I even had someone say Russo, and I know Russo, Anthony, obviously, the Archbishop Wood alum, not being very far from here. A lot of people have heard of Russo. They know what he's capable of.
A lot of people like him.
A lot of people like him. That's the correct word, terminology, is a lot of people like Anthony Russo. I don't know if I like Anthony Russo. I don't know. I haven't seen enough within just him on the practice field, him as an overall player. He obviously hasn't gotten any play time. Logan Marshy actually did get brief play time last season. He came in for a couple of a series. I mean, 6 attempts, 2 completions, threw for 39 yards. So he had touched the field in comparison to a lot of the other quarterbacks. Honestly, in my perfect world, I'd like to see Nova get their deserving beating. I think that's required.
Think, and I think not only would it help out our team to beat up on them as we should, but
because you try
it gives us confidence. Exactly. If we beat them by a lot, our defense or as our whole team demeanor is like, okay, we just smacked the team. Then if we beat them by a lot, we might see different quarterbacks. You have to see what's going on, just see what's happening. Then, couple that with UMass, who honestly might be a little worse than Villanova the week after. Yeah. I feel like both the schedule helps out. Too. Yeah, both at home, that helps out. 2 weeks to relax because right after that, it's conference time, baby. Yeah. It's conference time. We better kick into gear for those 2 games.
I want to present one more thing to you guys, and then after that we can move on to the next matchup. I think a pretty big deciding factor was not only the Temple defense, but if you compare the rushing games for these 2 teams, it is just completely lopsided.
Yeah.
Notre Dame has 42 carries for 422 yards, 5 touchdowns. They had 3 players rush for over 100 yards. Temple rushing, your best running back, Raquel Armstead, went 19 for 67, and he had a lost fumble. I think that's something to bring up in support of Logan Marshy being the guy, is that he might not have the help on the run game. The offensive line didn't look too bad, but it did have some spottiness.
Yeah, the offensive line was really good last year, with Deion Dawkins and company. We lost him, to the NFL, and rightfully so, but it looked a little bit weaker. But, I'm not going to lie. Notre Dame, they're a really good team. This is Notre Dame. I mean, I know last year they were 4-7, so at the end of last year when I knew we were opening up the season against them, I was like, hey, maybe we can get a win in South Bend. But, they're a lot better. You can definitely tell they're a lot better. The team just wants to play. Like last year, they just couldn't finish games. They couldn't finish plays. They just lay down at the wrong times. But, it looked like they finally straightened some things out. Ryan Kelly and company, they straightened some things out in South Bend. And now there's like, okay, we're the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. Let's go out there and let's kick some behind because we're Notre Dame. And it really looked like they got that play like a champion today demeanor back.
And I think the difference was when Temple had opportunities to gain momentum or opportunities to get ahead. Remember when Mike Jones returned that interception to the 14-yard line, and it was like, hold on, all of a sudden. It was a 28-10 game.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like we're getting physically dominated by Notre Dame's defense either. I mean, our offense only crossed the 50-yard line 6 times that game, but if you look at the score, it doesn't look like we crossed it 6 times. And if you look at the yardage in that, but we crossed the 50-yard line 6 times. Only got 2 touchdowns out of it, though. But like you said, that interception was huge. Austin Jones had a missed field goal. There's a lot more opportunities to score touchdowns. I mean, I just feel like we missed our opportunities, and Notre Dame just capitalized on everything. It's really one of those games.
And I don't worry about offense. I mean, on the receiving core, we have to remember Vince Hall Bryant was not present.
That's a huge.
He was not present in South Bend. He didn't even travel with the team, obviously dealing with the hamstring injury. We still have him coming back. Heath Kirkwood looked good. Isaiah Wright had a few sparks here and there. I liked he ran a quick screen route in the third quarter that I really liked. I just think, moving forward right now, all you can focus on is the next game. And the next game is Villanova, and then it's UMass. And then you don't get a break. You can't breathe because you got to go down to Tampa, Florida, and play a heavy lifting South Florida football team. This is a big division conference game. They're most likely going to be ranked. And we beat them last year at home in prime time, so they're not messing around. They got that 19 next to their name too. South Florida is a tough team.
Yeah,
and then let's not even
barring an upset, they're going to be ranked, and it's going to be a big game because if we lose that game, we have to win out in conference play if we want to play in the conference championship game.
And then you got the post Tom Herman Houston Cougars at home next week.
Yeah,
at the Link.
And they haven't looked bad.
They haven't.
They didn't look bad in their.
But speaking of, South Florida barely escaped Stony Brook, a team we beat 34-0.
Yeah, let's just throw that out. They only won 34-17. I mean, it was a close game. To be in the fourth quarter, it was tied.
Yeah, San Jose State had them.
Yeah, San Jose State
was up the wall earlier in the first game of the season. Yeah. So, lots to talk about, lots to see. But
yeah,
stay optimistic. If you're a fan of Temple football, stay optimistic. I think that's what we're trying to say here.
Yeah.
But yeah,
All
man.
right. So as we move on to the next match now, let's go back to the first game of the college football season, the first kickoff game. That was Ohio State versus Indiana. Guys, I just want to say, this was literally just like watching something that was started off amazing, and then in the second half, just completely. It's like watching
downhill real quick.
It's like honestly like watching like a film series that you love, and then once they make like the 8th installment, you're just like, God, stop, please.
I get it.
So 49-21. But let's remember that by the end of the first half, it was 14-13 in Indiana's favor. Guys, what happened in the second half? Because where I'm looking at the time of possession right here, it's all pretty even. The yards aren't too far apart, but something happened with this Ohio State team that just found some fire in the second half.
Well, I mean, they scored in the fourth quarter when it mattered. I mean, Benjamin Victor with the 11-yard pass from J.T. Barrett. That was with 12:08 remaining on the clock. Antonio Williams marked it in with a 5-yard run for insult to injury. Let's see how they finish this game. Is interesting. There were 4 touchdowns from it was about at the very end of the third quarter to the end of the game. All 4 of those touchdowns were Ohio State. So what should that tell you right there? One team showed up in the second half, and one team didn't.
Mm-hmm.
And this was a good Indiana football team. I mean, you got to give them credit. They gave up a pretty good fight in this game.
They gave a really good fight, but I think like the main takeaway I got from here is like you see with these Big Ten elite teams, such as Michigan, Ohio State, Penn State, depth. It's you can play a good first half against any team. Well, both of you fresh going in for the first half, but it's whoever's going that second half, whoever has the more talent, depth, whoever has whoever's just a better team just comes out, and it just came out. I mean, Ohio State just gets a 74-yard touchdown by Paris Campbell, and that's the end of the game. Right after that long touchdown, I just knew in the back of my mind, I was like, well, they just got a really long touchdown, momentum's on their side. I think that might be it for Indiana, but I just think Ohio State was just deeper than Indiana. I just think that's what it really came down to.
Yeah, it was depth, and what was funny though, when you look at the statistics from this game, Indiana's quarterback, who I got to give it to him. He played a heck of a game. I had really not known much about him. I had known he was wearing number 21.
Yeah,
I guess that was the first thing that
Can
threw
we
me
mention
off.
that, actually?
So,
he was wearing number 21.
Can I talk about that? The last time I've seen that or similar to that was Devin Gardner at Michigan.
Yeah.
And I hadn't seen it since.
He was wearing a number in the 90s, wasn't he?
I think
98,
so.
yeah.
98.
Yeah.
And then I saw it again. But you got to give it up to this kid from Plano, Texas, Richard Lago. I mean, he threw for 410 yards, 3 touchdowns. Now, granted, here's the part of the stat that I'd rather not like to mention because he played such a good game, but 2 interceptions.
Yeah.
J.T. Barrett, no interceptions, 3 touchdowns. And let's not even mention what he can do on the ground with his legs. I mean, J.T. Barrett's a dynamic quarterback.
He had 61 yards and a touchdown on his leg, but, he was doing good rushing. But, he had more rushing yards than the whole Indiana team.
Oh, yeah. If you compare the rushing stats between J.T. Barrett and Richard Lago, I believe it's pronounced, you have J.T. Barrett with 13 attempts for 61 yards and a touchdown. Lago has 7 carries for negative 30 yards, which is obviously probably just accounting for sacks and everything.
Yeah, NCAA. Yeah.
But literally, I think one thing, though, we got to take away, like Taylor was saying, this man threw for 65 attempts. And that's not easy asking a quarterback.
Well, yeah, it's not easy to...
This running game really did just fall apart in the second. Or I think throughout the entire game, your longest gain from a running back was 9 yards. And you're not winning games by doing that. You don't need me to tell you that, but that's also the case.
Yeah.
And honestly, I think, I have a minute and we're talking about Indiana's offense. Can we just I want to have a brief applause for this kid. He played it was a hell of a game. Simi Cobbs Jr. on Indiana, 149 yards, 1 touchdowns on 11 receptions. This kid really showed out. I mean, he wasn't present last season. I mean, he's a redshirt, but he really showed out in 2015. Accumulated over 1,000 yards on 60 receptions, 4 touchdowns, had a long of 55. Long of 55, you know what that tells me? That tells me explosion is present in this kid, and he had a hell of a game. I think he was part of the reason Indiana had that lead in the first half and had Bloomington, Indiana on their feet, man. So I got to give it up to him. I got to give it up to Indiana in general. It's just, Mike, like you said, the depth. You're playing Big Ten football here, and at the end of the day, I mean, you're on your home field and you have that advantage, but you're playing a playoff team. I mean, probably going to be a playoff team.
Like, not to mention a conference game, the first game
a big
of the
conference
season.
game, and it's overwhelming. It's like, it's nowhere in comparison to Temple and Notre Dame, but it's similar because Indiana in years past has not been the most successful college football program.
Nowhere close.
It's not like, Coach Corso's at Indiana anymore. But
yeah,
it was funny. We were watching that, and Corso was getting a warm welcome. I love Lee Corso.
He's my guy. Lee Corso's my guy.
Lee Corso, I just look at him, and I just think, wow, that man is just adorable. Everything about him.
My favorite Lee Corso moment was, I think it was a few years back, he cursed on set at the end
I
of the
remember
show. That was hilarious. I think they're in Houston.
I was sitting there with my dad watching, I was eating Cocoa Puffs.
Yeah, same.
And he just dropped that, and I looked at my dad, and I couldn't believe it. It was weird though, because if Stephen A. Smith did something like that, it's like totally cool because Stephen A. Smith's just so erratic. But it was like Lee Corso.
Yeah.
And you're sitting there and you're like, old man Lee Corso just dropped that on national television. But anyway, back to the usual subject. I mean, you got to give it up, honestly, in the defense in the second half. Ohio State's a big defensive team. By the way, Joey Bosa's brother is on Ohio State.
He looks just like him.
And he looks just like him.
It's hilarious.
And
he looks exactly
extremely similar to him. And I was watching that game, and I remember thinking, like, I was like, is Joey... I thought I was watching a replay.
Yeah, I did think
I thought I was watching a replay.
I saw him, and I got a little confused. I was like, wait, is that Joey Bosa?
Yeah.
I mean, it looked exactly like him. It was hilarious. Just
What year
different
is he
number.
this year? Sophomore? Junior?
He's a sophomore in the NFL.
So he's
Yeah.
on his way
Paid
back.
off. Guy's performing in the NFL.
Definitely. It'd be interesting to
Yeah.
see another Matthews family kind of come in. You see the Boses.
Yeah, the
Hopefully he
Boses
won't
come
have the contract situation that Joey did. Hopefully he'll be nicer. But
yeah, exactly.
it doesn't matter. Anyways, I want to move on to another game. What many were probably calling the most entertaining, or at least the toughest. It was just a crazy game. I want to talk about West Virginia University at Virginia Tech. That was one crazy game. It was literally just close the entire time. I'm literally speechless just thinking about it.
I agree. That was my favorite game.
Came down, and the thing I liked about it wasn't one of those the last second win, you're waiting, but it was a real good defensive holdout by Virginia Tech.
Yeah,
at the end.
the thing about this game is there was always something, whether it was Will Greer, the quarterback for West Virginia, getting his head knocked off because his offensive line couldn't block for him, or him just doing a 30-yard scramble and making a big play to one of the receivers. Then the next play, Dana Holgerson's going nuts, flipping out the referee. Then he's getting a flag. Then it's just going back and forth. There was always something with this game. My attention never was drawn away from this game, especially in the second half. I mean, the second half was really entertaining.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a renewal rivalry game. It was a one-touchdown game. That last drive of West Virginia was great. They almost got it, but I just like the defense. I just like the physicality. The atmosphere was awesome, and you got to give a shout out to the Hokie and Mountaineer faithful. In FedEx Field, it was pretty loud. It was loud. That was probably louder than any Redskins game I've heard on TV before.
Yeah,
it was definitely louder.
Most likely. Honestly, I love West Virginia, Virginia Tech. As a kid who lives in Northern Virginia, I love this rivalry because. See, West Virginia, when I think West Virginia, I think fast-paced, heavy running offense. When I think Virginia Tech, I just think raw running. Speaking of raw running, not just running, but passing in general, I got to give it up for a minute. We had a freshman in, number 17 on Virginia Tech. We had a freshman in by the name of Josh Jackson. He hails from Ann Arbor, Michigan. He threw for 235 yards on one touchdown, did not make a single mistake, and that's very rare. I was watching that game. That man rarely made a mistake on that game, and to be honest, I feel like he slips up one or two times in West Virginia, led by Will Greer.
Oh, I think if he slips up, once, I think West Virginia takes that game. That's what I think. West Virginia was sort of playing from behind for a good part of the game. That's what it felt like. I feel like as soon as their defense is really athletic at that being West Virginia and Josh Jackson's a freshman. It's just as soon as he makes that mistake, West Virginia's going to be on a roll and they're going to take this game, but he never did.
He also did have 11 carries for 101 yards, touchdown.
Oh, they couldn't stop him on the ground.
So he produced, a lot of people would probably say, Greer had the better passing yards. Yeah, he had about 100. But if you think about it, if you actually add the rushing yards and the touchdown, Josh Jackson was actually just right up in there in terms of performance. And I think it just goes to show that, at least in college, to just have a quarterback dynamic like that who can just it kind of
exciting. It's exciting to watch. Whether you are rooting for Virginia Tech or not, you have to praise Josh Jackson.
Oh, I was loving every minute I was watching.
He was fantastic.
I was loving every minute of it.
ACC in general, I saw a lot of great quarterbacks this weekend.
I really like the way Virginia Tech's been looking though. After Frank
after the Beamer era.
Yeah, they're really looking good.
They have a history though.
They're
a lot of people when they think Virginia Tech football, they think Michael Vick.
Yeah,
but to be honest, Virginia Tech, they've been one of those teams where it's in years past, they haven't been a national championship or any kind of playoff, maybe not even a big bowl discussion. But the more you think about it when you watch that team, granted, I mean, it was just West Virginia. West Virginia had a lot of slip-ups that ruined their chances of even being considered for a big bowl last season. So it's interesting to see. I honestly thought it was cool how the game started out kind of slow. I mean, it was a 3-0 ball game, Virginia Tech right off the bat. It was 10-7 going into halftime. Virginia Tech had the lead. It's had some heavy scoring in the third quarter. got to give it up for. I thought, all right. So here's my whole thing on Will Greer, the former Florida Gator. So when I was watching that game, I thought Will Greer played well. He had one kind of messy interception, but other than that, there were a couple of mishaps here and there. But I think he looks good in that system in West Virginia. It's interesting, like with the whole allegation.
Yeah, I can definitely
Yeah.
tell he had a year's worth of rust of like not playing, live game action football where people are
definitely.
trying to knock your head off. I can definitely tell he had that year's worth of rust. So I think that was big too. But I like West Virginia to bounce back though. I like the way their team was looking. They were looking fast. They're looking very athletic as most of their teams usually do.
Yeah.
It's just their defense. I need to see more fire from their defense. They really weren't. They really weren't trying to force turnovers. They were just playing bend don't break. And in the Big 12, your defense doesn't have to be great to win the Big 12. We know that, but if you want to get to the playoff conversation, which pretty much they're 0-1 with loss of Virginia Tech, they might be out of it unless they go on some really big run.
That's the harsh reality of it.
And that is the harsh reality of it. But I want to see more from their defense because I think their offense has it, but I just feel like their offense is waiting for their defense to do something for them to kick it into gear. That's what it felt like the whole game for me.
And they're very capable, like you said, of bouncing back. Playoff conversation may be over, but they have ECU at home, then Delaware State at home. They got to travel to Lawrence to play Kansas on the road. Number 23 TCU on the road in Dallas-Fort Worth.
Yeah,
that's going to be a bender.
But
look who they play 2 weeks later. They play at Baylor in Waco, Texas, where something happened in Baylor this weekend. We just got to kind of briefly mention that.
Right. That loss to Liberty was discussed. Was it 48-45? Right.
Mm-hmm.
Matt Rule's first game as a Baylor coach.
He deserved it.
Goodbye. Basically, that's what I want to say.
Liberty's a tough program. I actually have a couple connections to that university, highly religious university in Southern Virginia, but quite shocking, especially on your home turf. Whether you have I don't care if you have the worst quarterback or the best quarterback when you're playing on your home turf with a very successful coach. Granted, when Rule came to Temple,
you're honestly, I understand, like, your program needs to focus on other things than winning right now.
Yeah.
But you're playing Liberty. You're at home. It's a season opener. It's a debut for a new coach. You should still win that game. There's a reason Liberty was your first game and you're not getting a team, say, like Virginia Tech.
Yeah.
There's a reason you got Liberty as your first game. It's a cupcake game, so you're supposed to win. That's why we see these teams playing schools like that. But, hey, they can still lose them.
Instead, they let a quarterback throw for 60 times, get over 440 yards, 3 touchdowns. Nah, I'm not gonna lie, it was disgusting. For Matt Rule's standards, for what they hyped him up to be coming into Baylor.
For what he was at Temple, honestly.
Well, he had a rough start at Temple. Granted, remember, it took a few years to figure out Philip Walker, and all that.
Well, yeah, the thing is with Temple is, we're just, a bad program, talent-wise. Baylor, is kind of to that point now because of all the allegations, so...
Give him 2 years.
I think the reason he was the man for the Baylor job because you saw what he did with Temple. He built it from ground up, and within 2 years he was really good.
I just feel like the Big 12, especially, is something I know it's a step up, but it's definitely something that Baylor, or especially Matt Rule, could have just prepared better for. But anyways, let's get out of that little dipper dapper. That was just a little speckle we wanted to talk about. I think one game that I know Taylor definitely wants to talk about was the Tennessee-Georgia Tech game. Just a very, very interesting matchup that happened. Taylor, do you want to run down just a little bit of what you think was happening that match? It was very close. It came down right to the wire. I understand it's going to be, if you need a moment, don't worry about
we'll just let Taylor play the role of Spark Notes for this game.
Honestly, it was quite stressful, but at the same time, as a fan of college football and as a fan of the sport, I loved every single second of that game. I thought it was great. I thought, George, it's funny because when I was watching that, it was in Atlanta. By the way, that stadium's gorgeous.
Oh, that's
Can we
a
talk
beautiful
about that
stadium.
Scoreboard?
Can we actually talk about how they have a Chick-fil-A
nice.
there, but it's not open on Sundays?
It's not open on Sundays, but it's open on Saturdays. Game was on a Monday.
Yeah.
So it was probably open.
It's all days of the week.
I'm buying if you want to go down because I want to see that screen.
That is a beautiful
I'm trying to watch the
stadium.
Grammys on that scoreboard. That was just
exactly.
magnificent. But anyway, I'll get back to the game. So honestly, when I came into this game, when you look at a Tennessee team, they're much like Temple. They lost a lot of players to the draft. That's a good and bad thing.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, losing Derek Barnett, that's huge on defense. Jalen Reeves Maven, that's huge on defense.
I can definitely see that Derek Barnett was not there. That's the first thing I noticed.
The absence of obviously Josh Dobbs, Brandon quarterback Quentin Dorman. You gotta give it up to the kid though.
He had a very good game.
He had a very good game. And when he started out, when you kind of looked at him, like, wow, here's the thing. As a fan of Tennessee, obviously, like, I follow in depth with the team. I had already known a decent amount about the kid. I had already known, okay, here's what he comes from, here's how he looks. Unlike Temple, they had named him a while back. It was destined that he kind of got the position. I mean, being a junior now from born Texas, 6'4", 220 pounds. But he had a great ball game, 221 yards, 2 touchdowns, no picks. And his career, he actually has 3 touchdowns. He threw 1 last year. Overall, the first half of this game, I thought was a little back and forth, side shifted. Was a little concerned with how the run game would go, but John Kelly's here to stay. Hopefully, if that man gets hurt, Knoxville's got a big problem on their hands because he was absolutely fantastic last night. I was loving it. And when you lose Alvin Kamara to the draft, Alvin Kamara, you like the kid a lot, honestly, because he's not just a runner. He's an explosive runner, and he's quick, and he makes plays. He's a lot like let's say, comparison that everyone would know, a Jahad Thomas. So seeing how he showed out, just seeing how this whole team showed out, it was really awesome. I think the biggest takeaway, though, was I'll admit, Georgia Tech handed the game to Tennessee at the very end. You got to admit, when he was watching that game, I mean, he doesn't fumble that ball, it's pretty much game, Yellow Jackets. So it came down to a mistake by Georgia Tech, and Tennessee played till the final whistle.
Yeah, I mean, whenever you're playing Georgia Tech, no matter if you're ranked or not, if you're a top 5 team or you're a bottom 5 team, if they had rankings that go all the way down there, it's going to be a tough game because of that offense. I mean, Georgia Tech had 40 minutes of possession compared to Tennessee's like around 20.
Yeah,
that's
held the ball for a while.
Exactly. I mean, it's just the nature of the offense. They run the ball a lot, they barely throw it, so the clock's gonna always be running while they're on offense. But like, it just went as expected. I thought I'll see a little bit more fire out of Tennessee's offense, especially early. I was hoping for them to get John Kelly rolling early. They got him rolling late, but He's honestly, I think he's a little bit better than Alvin Kamara because I think he's more of a true running back than Alvin Kamara. I mean, Alvin Kamara, you can put him out to a slot position, you can put him out outside even, but I think John Kelly's more of a pure running back, even though he still has the same athleticism as Kamara.
Yeah.
But I would have loved to see him just get involved early. That's why I thought they were going to blow out because
he had that 1 yard
early.
run at the goal line in the second quarter. But I mean, I agree, Mike. You really didn't see the spark.
Exactly.
The kid had. I'm sorry, I just got to point this out just so this sinks in your brain right now. The kid had 4 touchdowns, 128 yards, 19 carries. Oh, let's not even get
2 in overtime.
2 in overtime.
Both Tennessee touchdowns for him.
And honestly, while we're at it, I mean, it was great to see because you were kind of concerned going into this game, how would this offense work with a new quarterback like Quentin Dormady in there? But Marquez Callaway stepped up big time. 2 touchdowns, 115 yards. He was fantastic. Whole team looked great.
Yeah, just one takeaway from the Tennessee offense. You guys were dropping a lot of passes.
There's a lot of drop passes, and there were a lot of miscues.
I feel like Dormady was almost getting a little overwhelmed in the first half because you guys were dropping a lot of passes. I mean, I feel like that was another reason you guys didn't jump on him early because you were dropping a lot of passes of close to 20 yards and some even longer than that. So I mean, I think that was a really big part right there.
An important thing to really take from this match, honestly, is Tennessee just readjusting to a completely new roster. We're talking Alvin Kamara, Derek Barnett. We got a new quarterback in Dormady. And I think a lot, especially the young kids, stepped up. I'm looking at Daniel Batuli right now, sophomore linebacker, 23 tackles and a forced fumble. And the Tennessee defense, well, yes, it did allow a lot of points. At the same time, they also did recover 2 fumbles. And, Mike, like you said, the dropping of the passes, sometimes those quick 3 and outs is all it needs just for Georgia Tech come out there, going to quick 60-yard play.
Yeah.
It's going to happen. I think Tennessee is just going to have to readjust to the new defense, especially without Barnett. But I think the way the offense adjusted to it and these young players are going around, it could look worse. Yeah. It could definitely look worse.
Yeah, but going against a triple option offense, you don't see that all the time. So I mean, yes, it was a season opener, so they probably had a little bit more than 1 week to prepare for it. But it's always hard to play those. It's always hard to play those because it's really difficult.
Your way.
Because they always think that they're always gonna run it. Then when they do throw you get beat, and you're like, damn it.
It's funny you said away because if you watch that game, you could have sworn we were playing in Knoxville, but Georgia Tech's in Atlanta, and that game was in Atlanta. And I thought the Georgia Tech faithful were awesome. I thought both sides fan bases were great. But speaking of triple option and points, I have to take a few minutes just dedicated just to this guy. He was probably my favorite player from this entire weekend. Taquan Marshall, the junior, getting his first start at Georgia Tech from Hamilton, Georgia, 5'10". Yeah. He showed out. And
very great game.
44 carries.
Yeah, 44 carries, 120 yards. It was ridiculous. And that was just his passing. I mean,
Yeah.
we're not even getting to the
Yeah.
rushing. 249 rushing yards.
5 touchdowns.
Five touchdowns.
Five
Five
touchdowns.
Jeez.
Is this dude even a quarterback, or did they just say, all right, we're going to have
He's
two
like-
running back under center?
He's like
and
the
then-
southern
yeah.
version of Keenan Reynolds.
Yeah.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Really. Yeah.
Yeah, but overall, a great game. I mean, as a Tennessee fan, obviously I was happy, but at the end of the day, Georgia Tech, honestly, I don't dispute what Georgia Tech did there going for 2 when you're playing an SEC team.
Oh, it's second overtime. Why not?
They're just better
Why
built.
not?
They're more experienced. They have the depth. You know, at that point in the game, you can't take a gamble because let's say Tennessee goes back out on the field, your team's gassed. I loved the all-in mentality.
Oh,
And I loved how it
especially,
ended
yeah.
on a dramatic
I
play.
feel like if Georgia Tech, was ranked, or say Tennessee wasn't ranked, then I would think they maybe played out. But you're playing a ranked SEC opponent. You're trying to get a big win first of the year.
Not
You gotta-
highly ranked,
you're at
but still ranked.
You're at a home game, but it was more of a neutral site game in Atlanta. So you just want to go out there and win it when you have a chance. And hey, you're 3 yards away from the end zone. Your quarterback was running the ball all day. Like your offense was pretty much moving. Why not? Why not?
Just a crazy game. We'll keep an eye on Tennessee throughout the year because we know how much Taylor loves them. And Tennessee's always just an exciting team to watch. I want to talk about one more game, and my heart is telling me to talk about the Aggies, but my gut is telling me to talk about that Howard win. So, ladies and gentlemen, we will divert our attention to Howard because usually my gut is right, and if I follow my heart, it just ends up in complete sadness. But let's talk about Cam Newton's little brother, Kalen Newton, just coming in, 45-point underdog. Howard comes in there, dumps, wins this game 43-40. Close game. Kalen Newton, 15 for 26, 140 yards, a touchdown, interception. But he also ran for 21 attempts, 190 yards, 2 touchdowns. So similar to what we were just talking about in Georgia Tech. Guys, Mike, let's start off with him. How do you feel about this team right now?
Well,
Sorry, I threw a lot at you. I apologize.
You threw a lot at me, and I'm happy you threw it all at me because this is honestly very, very cool to look at. UNLV. Hey, is their football program anything special? I mean,
they play in Vegas. It's
They
hard,
do
it's
play
hard
in
to focus on anything but gambling.
I think
Yeah,
the interesting
Vegas.
is just the 45-point underdog thing. Is that we
Yeah.
have to mention it.
You know, I
Like,
saw
it's-
UNLV this summer. It was right on the strip. I just drove by. Summer league was going on. I tried
Oh,
to
yeah.
go. Parents took me to Circus du Soleil. You know, we go to Circus. I mean, granted, it was the Beatles. It was a great show. It was fantastic. I loved it.
Sounds like a
would've-
really fun show.
it was
honestly.
a great show. Actually, let me revert the attention to the Beatles here. It was a fantastic show. If you're ever in Vegas, see that show. But to get to your point about UNLV, Mike, yeah, I got to agree. I mean, maybe basketball, but football.
Yeah,
It's-
but I mean, you still shouldn't lose to Howard University.
No,
though.
100%.
But, I mean, hey,
Yeah.
when you have a Newton under center, anything is possible.
Yeah,
but
right.
The best,
anything
the best
is
part
possible.
is his name is Armani Rogers, so all I can
Oh,
see
yeah,
right now is Aaron
UNLV's
Rodgers
quarterback,
with just
yeah.
like Armani swag on, and it just looks great. But I mean, there's no excuse. You still lose to Howard like that. Guys, let's talk about Kalen Newton though. I mean, I gotta be honest with you guys. I don't think he has the potential Cam Newton does. I know it's
you
early.
never
It's
know.
very
He just
early.
beat you on
Plays a
LA.
low key program, but the kid showed out. So.
He did
He
show out. He did show out.
Give him a quick little
He did
shout
ball
out.
out.
Nice for him.
But
Nice for that
The
university.
thing was, though, I think the difference here, though, is that, and again, like you guys said, it was way too early, but Cam did have that rocket arm. Even when back in Auburn, Cam could just launch it down the field and then boom, like it'd be a
Yeah.
beautiful throw. Kalen,
I don't
if you
think
throw
he
for
has
140
that.
yards,
and
you're
I'm
not gonna-
gonna be brutally honest. And when you're at Howard University, you might not have the opportunity to do that.
yeah,
I have Kalen's high school stats in front of me. He played ball at Grady High School in Atlanta. You know, that's a raw program right there. Actually,
Mm-hmm.
Grady High School down in Georgia. Any Georgian, high school team in general,
Yeah, pretty
they
much.
develop. Last season, 33 touchdown passes. Career wise, over 3,300 yards. Threw 8 interceptions in his career there. So makes a few mistakes. Seems like a smart kid. His brother, I mean, he probably learns from the best. His brother's, brother's dragging
he's
the
probably
checks.
he's probably picking in his brother's brain every day.
he's
Yeah,
probably calling him like, "Hey, Cam, I'm gonna catch up to you soon." those commercials that you make with all the kids, yeah, it's gonna be me on there.
Yeah,
I remember
I'm
that.
gonna take your Oiko spot.
Okay, Kalen, do what you want.
Yeah, I mean Howard's obviously located in D.C. I've driven through it many times playing in the MEAC.
Did you ever tour it?
Never toured it. Actually, traditional African American university, but
Mhm.
obviously being Caucasian, it's not like I was really focusing on the school, but it's a pretty good area. Honestly, Howard for me when I drive through Howard, like I get like kind of like not the dark vibe of DC, but the more gothic. Like it's a cool vibe. I mean, great for Howard. I mean, to finish my point here, I mean, just awesome to watch. What were they? They were underfavored by what, like 40, 45 points.
Second biggest underdog spread. And
I mean, ever since I've seen
victory
Leicester City do
in,
that whole thing,
Colchester.
it hasn't been the same. Leicester, or some people call it Leicester. Ever since I saw that,
No,
there's never been an
it's
underdog as
Leicester.
crazy as that. But it's always interesting to
Skip
see.
Bayless probably calls it Leicester.
Yeah,
It's
Skip
definitely
Bayless definitely
Leicester.
doesn't call it Leicester.
So whatever it's called, I mean, it doesn't matter. But it's always interesting to see an underdog matchup, and we just had to at least mention
Had to give
it
him a
briefly,
quick little shout
especially
out.
the fact that it was Cam Newton's little brother, and we love Cam Newton here because he's an all around good guy. So
great guy.
that caps off college football. There's plenty of other games we could be talking about, but we would be like, you guys don't want to stay here with us for the next 7 hours, although we would love to stay with you guys for the next 7 hours. It's okay. So we're going to move over now to the NFL, and one thing that's really been interesting us ever since the season starts this Thursday, but something that's really been interesting us is the quarterback situation. There's been a lot of new contracts, trades, agreements, rookies trying to take the starting position, and I think that's the one we're going to start off with. I'm very interested in seeing the development of rookie quarterback Deshaun Kaiser for the Cleveland Browns. It was originally a competition between him and Brock Osweiler. Obviously, we saw the Brock Osweiler experiment didn't work. They put Deshaun Kaiser in. Had some pretty good preseason statistics. Not the best, but I think that he definitely displayed a level of poise, and this is something that's needed for a Cleveland Browns team. And I think, honestly, he could be part of a new trend that could make them not the worst team. Well, the Jets have definitely taken that now, but the Browns can move to
If I'm in Cleveland, thank God for the Jets.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
If I'm in
exactly.
Cleveland, thank God for the Jets.
So, Mike, let's start off with you. What do you want to talk about with this Browns team? Well, actually, let's start. What do you want to talk about with Deshaun Kaiser?
Well,
That's interesting, yeah.
I always liked his game, at Notre Dame. How he was that nice blend of he's a really good pocket passer and he's fairly mobile. He's a very good athlete. But I just want to take a look at like how he's fitting in this situation right now with the Browns, because I'm gonna be honest with you, I'm loving what the Browns are doing right now. I'm having every single piece of
spoonful.
every single spoonful, 4-course meal, everything. I'm having all of it. Isaiah Crowell, while he's not like maybe your top 5 running back, he's definitely a solid, dependable running back that you aren't mad that you're going to have for a 16-game season. Then a receiver, I mean, it's not the best, but Kenny Britt and Corey Coleman is a better 1-2 punch than Cleveland's had for the last couple years. I mean, it's not the best, but it's not bad. Then the offensive line, it got a lot better with some signings. Kevin Zittler, you still have Joe Thomas there. Then at tight end, let's see what David Njoku has. So we have a lot of young pieces. We have some dependable pieces up front. We have a lot of veteran pieces up front, something the Browns aren't really too accustomed to. So I feel like that's big. You have a lot of solid vets on that offensive line for a young quarterback. Then you have a nice veteran receiver in Kenny Britt, who just got his first 1,000-yard year last year. Then you have a nice dependable veteran running back in Isaiah Crowell. And you have some young weapons who you can do a little bit with. And you can't even forget about a fullback. I'll mention a fullback right now. Don't be mad, but Dan Vitale out of Northwestern, he could be a weapon in fullback. He can be a weapon as a fullback. Something we haven't seen in a while.
Hugh Jackson as a coach always likes to utilize like different things. I've always liked him as an offensive coordinator, or especially when it comes to offensively strategizing. And I think now this year he does have a little more of the weapons he wants to use. And I think Cleveland was smart in the front office this offseason. They made some pretty good moves.
Mm-hmm.
I think the draft picks they made.
You
David
can definitely get
Njoku
creative.
might be a pick that I question, but at the same time, like you say, let's see what he's got. He's a first-round pick for a reason. When he goes out there, I'm sure he'll impress just fine enough.
Yeah, I think you hit it right on the dot, man. This was a good draft for the Cleveland Browns this year. I was really impressed with how they were able to steal Caleb Brantley late in the draft in the 6th round, defensive tackle out of Florida.
That's a steal.
That was a steal and a half. He had a great career at Florida under, ironically, Jeff Collins there in the defensive scheme. And honestly, every single time I go on social media, anything that's connected with the Browns is always Myles Garrett. And people were like, oh, well, is Myles Garrett better than Derek Barnett? Is Derek Barnett better than Myles Garrett? But I'm hearing a lot of Myles Garrett and not that much from Derek Barnett. I think that's just because the Browns have more attention on them because they were just that bad in previous years.
Yeah, and it's just the Browns always have that national media attention.
I thought Myles Garrett was better than Derek Barnett, even as a Tennessee fan, but it's not like it's like a huge significant amount. I mean, honestly, and if you look at defensively, Mike, it's funny because they snagged Howard Wilson, cornerback out of Houston, so it's more of a complete defense. Offensively, I thought Cody Kessler was going to get this job, though. So to be completely honest with you, to get to your central point about Deshaun Kaiser, The kid was great at Notre Dame. I thought he maybe should have stayed one more year in college. That's a personal opinion. You can come at me.
I frankly agree.
I
but,
think
hey,
he should have stayed another year at college. So did Coach Gruden. But personally, I think it was a little shocking how he was drafted this past year. And I mean, Josh McCown obviously is the presumed starter in the Meadowlands right now. Obviously, Cody Kessler, former USC quarterback. Not awful. I mean, 6 touchdowns last season. Did not throw an interception. I put a lot of emphasis on quarterbacks who don't throw interceptions because I like smart quarterbacks who don't really make mistakes. And to be real with you, Cody Kessler didn't make a lot of mistakes last season. I think just the issue was it was either something Cleveland saw in training camp and just throughout this whole process, or to be honest, maybe Cody Kessler just didn't show out, when the time was on him or when the spotlight was put on him. And this Cleveland Browns team's interesting. Like I agree, Mike. No playoffs for you this year, Cleveland. I'm sorry, but hey, man, you may not win. You could probably win maybe 5 or 6 games. Who knows?
This offense can get really creative, though. Like, don't be surprised. I mean, you have names like Duke Johnson Jr. as your backup running back, and I mentioned names your fullback Dan Vitale. You have a lot of creative weapons. Where Hugh Jackson, who we know is a good NFL offensive mind, that's what we always hear. That's what everybody makes us believe. So I mean, this offense can get a little creative, and hey, we can see a little something. And and with these roster cuts in the NFL now going from 90+ men down to 53 right away, there's still a decent amount of good decent free agents out there. Maybe the Browns can scoop up. You never know. I mean, there's still plenty of time leading up to the season, but I like the direction they're heading. I just think they're just at the point where it's why not? Let's just throw them in. We have nothing else to lose.
When you throw DeShone Kizer in because you don't want to throw in Brock Osweiler, that's a great decision. And you know what? Let's move the conversation over to Brock Osweiler, who just literally went on a quarterback merry-go-round. So he started off his little career in Denver, little baby boy under Peyton Manning.
At Arizona
played
State.
there, and to be fair, he did play there as a backup. And he's like, "All right, guys, come on, it's my time to start." But at the same time, Brock Osweiler is like, "I want starter money." No, dude, you're not doing that. So Denver's like, "All right, get out of here." Trevor Siemian and Paxton Lynch. Oh my God, we love you. Brock Osweiler goes to Houston. Gets a huge contract. Oh my gosh, he's gonna get it. Him, DeAndre Hopkins, C.J. Fedorowicz, Lamar Miller. It's over. Throws 15 touchdowns, 16 interceptions. Doesn't even get 3,000 yards. Boom, out of Houston. Go to Cleveland. Now he's on Cleveland. Okay, now I have the opportunity to start here. Wait a minute, DeShone Kizer's looking pretty good in camp. Wait a minute, I look horrible in the preseason. Oh gosh, here I am. Oh no, I'm a free agent again. And who flips him back up? The Denver Broncos. And now he's a backup behind both Paxton Lynch and Trevor Siemian.
For the veteran minimum. Can we say that?
The veteran minimum.
I mean, what did Houston give him? $24 million guaranteed him, I believe in?
Something like that. I know it was a $79 million contract.
It was a $72 million contract, and they gave some 20 in the...
This should just say about how bad Brock Osweiler was working out in Cleveland. The Browns still owe him $16 million in 2017. They still owe him $16 million.
Yeah, because that traded it with the Texans. They scooped that second-round pick from the Texans, but in return they had to take a good part of Osweiler's salary.
This man has made so much money just by being a mediocre quarterback, but selling himself like he's the greatest person ever.
Is he even
but
mediocre?
At this point, honestly, he might be the smartest financial person we've ever seen in the NFL.
He just finessed the NFL. I'm not going to lie. He finessed the NFL. Congratulations to him.
I mean, mediocre would be praising this guy. He was brought into Cleveland. It was funny in the offseason. He was brought into Cleveland the whole attitude was, DeShone, we're going to have you sit out, the first maybe 2 years.
I thought it was going to be Cody Kessler even when Osweiler was there. Yeah, because
they brought him in though for all that money.
Yeah, I mean,
and when you bring someone in for that price tag, I expect a starter. That's just a personal opinion.
They mainly acquired him just for that second round pick, though. I mean, it was
not like they wheeled and dealed.
I mean, exactly. They wanted that pick, but the Texans were like, "Listen, if you want this pick here, you're gonna have to do us a huge favor right here.
Basically, let us just throw out the garbage on you."
Yeah, exactly. You're gonna have to take out our trash.
The Browns having so much salary cap because at the time they didn't have any great players was like, sure.
With all these rookies, all these young guys. So I mean, but I was just reading up, and it just doesn't look like he was a starter. Then out of nowhere, Hugh Jackson's like, well, we didn't bring him here just so he doesn't have a shot to play. What's all this? Then he gets cut. Come on, I'm done.
When he signed that 4-year, $72 million deal to stay in Houston, we thought for sure. I mean, it's funny you said what would have made him a starter. Well, I thought, when a guy, and this is a discussion for another time, but when a guy gets paid $72 million over 4 years, and he is brought in there to Houston to a Houston team that actually wins that division a fair amount, or in the playoffs a consistent amount,
their defense
whether they're good or not good. And when he's brought into there, it's supposed to be the whole mentality should be, oh, hey, Brock, you're in here to win games. At the end of the day, we play to win games.
That move supposedly put the Texans over the edge.
Right. And when he was brought into Cleveland, it was the same exact thing. It was you're here to win games, but it's quite evident why Brock Osweiler is back in Denver right now and not his house in Cleveland, Ohio. I mean, the guy threw 12 of 24 passes for 67 yards, no touchdowns, and an interception in only 2 preseason games. And to be quite honest, everything I'm hearing is Deshaun Kaiser came to practice. He knew what he wanted. He knew what he had to do. And Brock Osweiler was just in and out, in and out. And to be honest, I don't blame the Browns for what they do. We'll have to see. Like I said earlier, I don't know if Deshaun Kaiser is quite ready, but who knows? The young man's really showed out this preseason. He took away Brock Osweiler out of the picture.
I mean, it really doesn't hurt. I mean, you saw what the Eagles did last year. They wanted to start Sam Bradford, and then it was like, all right, let's just trade him to start Carson Wentz. We don't need Sam Bradford. Let's just get the future going now.
Paid him like $18 million.
What's the point? Trade. What's the point of playing 1 year? I mean, or waiting 1 year. I mean, Brock Osweiler is obviously not the answer in Cleveland. I mean, not a lot of people are the answer in Cleveland. So why not throw him in? See what he's got.
15, 16 to be exact? More than that. Remember that shirt?
Oh yeah, I think it's close to the 20s.
For years,
it might be closer
media.
to 20s now. It might be closer to 20s.
Speaking of, Jake Delhomme.
Yeah, Jake Delhomme.
Yeah.
Brian Hoyer.
I have too many feelings about that man to
Robert
start talking
Griffin.
about him.
Johnny
So instead,
Manziel.
we'll talk about Jay Cutler instead of that.
All right.
Jay Cutler, former Chicago Bear, former Denver Bronco. But honestly, I thought he and Kyle Orton were the same exact person. Just a little side note. Jay Cutler, after spending some time in Chicago, and then Chicago finally realizing, wait a minute, we've had like
what are we doing?
3 head coaches and like how many other no, okay, this is it. We got to stop.
Reset.
Chicago was like, all right, we're going to get Mike Lennon. We're going to draft Mitchell Trubisky. We're going to restart. It's
I'm
be
still
all
recovering
good.
from Mitchell Trubisky being drafted in Philadelphia. I know you are too.
I still have blood force trauma for like when they announced that trade. I'm still shocked. Like I'm not gonna lie, I'm still shocked how much the Bears gave away.
Yeah, it was. But then again, it's a whole restructuring process for them. They're going through some stuff.
Hey,
but
you only live once.
They sent their former quarterback to Miami. And I guess, I'm not sure what the situation is with Ryan Tannehill, but people seem to be loving the fact that Jay Cutler's in Miami. They're like, oh my God.
I'm loving it.
Jay Cutler.
I'm all on a J train. I'm with the J squares, Jay Cutler and Jay Ajayi. I'm loving
so guys,
it.
what is it that makes Jay Cutler just so lovable, even though he's just
because him and Adam Gase is a marriage. It's a marriage made in heaven. Even if it was only a 1 year stand, it was still a great stint. I mean, I'm just looking at the fit, and I'm just thinking, hey, this offensive line's not bad. Jay Ajayi's one of the up-and-coming running backs in the NFL. Jarvis Landry, you know what you're going to get out of him. He's going to be a dependable target who has the hands, like his former LSU teammate Odell Beckham Jr. He hasn't been getting the touchdowns, but that's where Kenny Stills and who I love, Devontae Parker, come in. I mean, those guys are touchdown machines. They can really stretch the field. Devontae Parker, he's a nice physical target. He's a big target. He reminds me a lot of Alshon Jeffrey. They're really similar in, height and weight. And, hands-wise, and if you look at their film in college, they really look identical. The way they run routes, the way they can really manipulate their body on one-on-one coverages. So I just feel like Devontae Parker and Jay Cutler are going to have a marriage like made in heaven right off the bat. Adam Gase, I feel like, is going to put him in the right situation. Jay Cutler was only going to come out if he felt like he was in the right situation. So if he believes he's in the right situation, I believe he's in the right situation.
Yeah, I mean, initially the Jets gave him an offer, and honestly, no disrespect to the Jets, but it's evident.
It's laughable.
Well, it's evident that the New York Jets have about 4 or 5 years before they can start to compete. And honestly, Jay Cutler's an aging quarterback. And when you look at the situation, it's funny. When we're looking at the situation, it was Cutler or Kaepernick, and it was one of the two was going to go to Miami, but I think, honestly, you hit it right on the dot, Mike. What sold it was the Adam Gase marriage. It was one stint, but in 15 games, Cutler completed 64.4% of his passes. He was averaging around 8 yards per attempt, over 3,000, around 3,700 yards, just below that, 28 touchdowns. One thing, though, that I take away from this season and from Jay Cutler's career, though, is 11 interceptions that season. He's an old quarterback, but he's put in a young system. And I think it's evident at this point that Ryan Tannehill has some health issues. Obviously, him going out late last season was devastating. Matt Moore had to come in, perform
out for this year.
And listen, the leg's going to be the leg. At the end of the day, it's the best in the business, taking care of it, rehabbing, making sure he gets back to being Ryan Tannehill again. But you have to think long term. You need a guy that's been here before. You need a guy who's a set starter. And I think when it came down to it, Jay Cutler was really your best option. Tony Romo was pretty set on staying out of the NFL. I think it's the best thing for Tony Romo.
I think if he ever returns, it's only going to be for the Cowboys.
It's the best. It's the best thing for him, for his situation. I think it was shocking. Obviously, I mean, Cutler had that whole interview with CBS set up, so it's still shocking, but I think it makes sense.
It makes perfect sense to me, and I can just keep naming weapons the Dolphins have, but they just traded.
Did you mention Devontae Parker? He's on my fantasy bench.
Yeah.
I was happy about
I was
that.
trying to draft.
I was happy about that.
He got drafted. And I had to pick
Great receiving core, young team.
Yeah, really young team, and
I like it.
Not a young guy.
A lot of young teams in the
dependable.
South, Jaguars and Bucks too.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of young teams down there.
I mean, and I like who they got at tight end right now, Julius Thomas. Not a young guy, but dependable.
Veteran experience.
Veteran experience. It really wasn't a great fit in Jacksonville, but whenever you're an NFL player who catches balls for a living and your quarterback is
Blake Bortles.
You get the picture.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's not the right situation. So, I mean, I feel like just Jay Cutler, hey, I mean, he might not be in the best shape, but give me Jay Cutler and all of his cigarettes, and Miami fans be happy, because I feel like just signing Jay Cutler for 1 year, why not deals, search for the other quarterback later, because Matt Moore's not the guy. Why not? Let's see what happens.
Quickly,
You got to give some risk.
I got to ask you quickly before we move on. Your Dolphins playoff team, not a playoff team, on the spot.
I say no, because I feel like the AFC got a lot better this year, because I feel like the Titans have taken a step up. So that's two teams in AFC South, Texans and Titans. And, hey, Blake Bortles is kind of average. Maybe the Jaguars can be good. But then the AFC West is just too deep. I just don't feel like the Dolphins will be able to keep up.
I say best case they get that wild card, but I agree. I don't see them,
because they're definitely not winning the division, because there's a team called the New England Patriots, which,
Yeah, who pretty much.
Speaking of their
our
QB
TFL
situation,
playoff picture, the AFC pretty much looks exactly the same, except for the switch off of the Dolphins and the Ravens, because I just think that the Ravens are more better set up than the Dolphins. I think honestly both of them fight for the sixth string, because the Chiefs, Steelers, Raiders, and Patriots and Texans are probably going to make it.
Mm-hmm.
But anyways, we're all excited for Jay Cutler's The Decision Part 2, and whenever he makes that, see wherever he signs with, and then when he signs with that team, we will ultimately see the true Jay Cutler we wanted to. I'm going to move it on to just one more quarterback, and then I want to talk about a couple quarterback matchups. Let's talk about Matt Stafford after signing a 5-year, $145 million deal. And this is after Derek Carr signs his $125 million deal.
Money.
And here's the thing. While I can understand Derek Carr honestly, I don't really understand a lot of these players. But Derek Carr getting 5 years, $125 million is because Derek Carr, year in, year out, he has literally flipped this Oakland team around. No other player, I have not seen a player.
From a short time in Oakland, soon to be Las Vegas. Yes, you're right.
Statistically, he's
kind of earned it.
He leads the team, and not only he knows what he's doing. Matt Stafford. The problem with him is that while he's a good quarterback, it's Matt Stafford. You're going to, on the road, you're going to have Matt Stafford. At home, you're going to have Matt Stafford. During the playoffs, you're going to have Matt Stafford. But when it's Thanksgiving, you're going to have Matt Stafford. So it's Lions fans, I feel bad for you guys, because I think the thing is, you guys are listen, and we had the same thing with Donovan McNabb. It's listen, he's the man. But sometimes Donovan McNabb can be Donovan McNabb, or he can be Donovan McNabb. That's the thing.
Yeah.
So, listen, Mike, when we start off with you, what do you think about this Matthew Stafford signing? Do you think it was right for the Lions to do it, and why or why not?
It would have been the right time to do it if they still had one Calvin Johnson Jr. still there. But, I understand where the Lions are coming from. You need a quarterback. It's very hard to find a quarterback, so if you got to give a little coin to keep your quarterback, you got to do what you got to do. But now you're kind of beat, because how are you going to sign other free agents? With what money? Because you're going to have to tie up money into this guy and this guy.
Exactly.
You got to upgrade your receiver position. You're paying Matt Stafford all this money. Who's he going to throw to now? Oh, wait, you can't sign anybody because you just gave all the money to him.
And you know what? The same exact thing. I remember saying the same exact thing about the Colts with Andrew Luck. Because remember, Andrew Luck signed that big deal, and where are the Colts right now? Texans look like the best in the division. So I think, just to add on what you're saying.
Exactly. And you look at a quarterback who doesn't take all this money, and his team's very good. Taylor, I think you know who I'm talking about.
There's this quarterback for New England.
Don't say it. If you're going to say it, you're going to say it, Mike. Might as well just say it.
All right, I'll say Tom Brady takes less money than all these people.
Said it.
But the Patriots are really good. They have 5 Super Bowls for a reason. And I don't think the Lions are going to win 5 Super Bowls after signing Matt Stafford this money because, one, Matt Stafford isn't that good, and two, well, I mean, he is good, but he's not that good. And two, you don't have any money for anything else now. So good luck trying to win a
And I
championship.
think the central problem with this is that and it's with every team too. You got to sign your superstar player. You got to do this. You got to do that. And here's the thing: it's like, listen, this is a 53-man team. Not one person's gonna win you the Super Bowl. Okay, as great as Tom Brady is, you know who wins that Super Bowl? Gerard Mayo, Bill Belichick, defensive, offensive coordinators, Julian Edelman, Wes Welker. All like it's not just Tom. Exactly, Malcolm Butler. It's not just Tom Brady. It's the other players on the team who come in with the fun. But the thing is, the Patriots, they realize that. I mean, sometimes they realize that they also throw off their superstars. But the thing is, they realize though it's all about the structure. It's not just about the one guy.
Yeah, that's why they do throw off their superstars, though. I mean, that's why they didn't re-sign a 31-year-old LeGarrette Blount.
We don't need Jamie,
we don't need him anymore. So bye. Go make a lot of money somewhere else because you're not going to get it here.
Well, I think to sum everything up, there's no debate. I don't think this should be a conversation in Detroit right now. Matt Stafford is the starter.
Oh, yeah, I agree.
No,
I agree. He's the guy. He's your franchise quarterback.
Well, here's the thing, and a lot of people actually don't realize this. Stafford's coming off one of his best seasons.
Oh, he had a really good year last year.
4,003.
It makes sense why it happened.
4,300 yards, 24 touchdowns, 10 interceptions. He actually played the whole last month injured. Remember that middle finger?
Yeah, and all their fourth quarter comebacks too.
Yeah.
I mean,
I just think, and honestly, he looked pretty good in Jim Cooter as the offensive coordinator in his first year. Jim Bob Cooter. Great name. He looked great. I mean, he settled into the new system quite well. I just feel like, honestly, and this is, we're not going to talk about this in depth, but at the end of the day, the Lions' run game is very bad. They're ranked 30th in the NFL in rushing. It didn't have a bad game for more than 70 yards all season.
And I know I'm just beating a dead horse right now, but now they don't have any money to address that. They're kind of handcuffed.
And honestly,
they're really handcuffed. They have all this money.
Because you say offense, all he has is really, I mean, Eric Ebron, when is he going to come around?
Yeah, I don't think he ever is because he can't stay healthy. Then when he is healthy, it doesn't look like he wants to be out there. So I just don't know what to believe with this guy.
It's like Golden Tate, I already know about. I'm actually really excited this season for Marvin Jones Jr. Honestly, the Cal Berkeley
he had a really
sixth season.
He had a really down year last year.
Career-wise, though, he's over a 2,600-yard receiver. Last year, he only had 4 touchdowns. I'll give you that. But I'm excited to see what he does this season for Detroit.
Maybe we can see a little Kenny Galladay action.
We may.
Yeah, whether it's Marvin Jones,
from Southern Illinois, right? Or is it Northern Illinois?
Northern Illinois.
The Huskies.
Maybe Eric Ebron will pick up this year. No matter who it is, it's definitely up to Stafford to play up to the money. Or else we're just going to have another Jay Cutler type situations like, why did you pay this man so much money?
It's just the NFC North right now. The whole Vikings quarterback situation with Sam Bradford. I feel for that team right now.
I feel for
Teddy Bridgewater.
I just feel for whoever has to be associated with Sam Bradford. I'm just going to be brutally honest.
Yeah, let's just get away from that, man.
Yeah.
Alrighty. Let's talk about just a couple of QB matchups, and then we'll move on to our final segment of the show. I think something interesting I want to do is in 2016, we had Carson and Dak Prescott drafted. Now they play in the same division. They got a rivalry going on. We had Jameis Winston and Marcus Mariota drafted first and second overall in 2015. I didn't do Carson versus Goff ever.
Because we know the answer. We all know the answer.
But
the answer is C.
The thing is, like, we already there's already way too much talk about that. And Carson and Dak seem so much more interesting. But you know what? Let's start off with Jameis versus Mariota because that one came first, the chicken and the egg. Jameis is going to come into this season with Deshaun Jackson, Mike Evans, and
O.J. Howard.
Doug Martin, is he still suspended?
He's suspended for the first 3 games.
But he has Jaquiz Rodgers in the back.
Yeah.
But he's played pretty well too, Jaquiz Rodgers.
Yeah, Chris Sims for depth.
Chris Sims for depth.
So
Jameis definitely has,
just for flavor.
Jameis has the firepower, and I think he's definitely got chances here versus Mariota, who's going to have Tajay Sharp, Corey Davis. He's going to have Delaney Walker. Then he has Derrick Henry, DeMarco Murray.
Eric
Decker. He's stacked. So, Taylor, who do you think of these 2 quarterbacks is going to have the better year?
I really like Jameis Winston this year, and I really like the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, honestly. No disrespect. Honestly, Marcus Mariota, I love Marcus Mariota, but I was kind of unsure when he came into the NFL if he would ever come around. But as you just added, Corey Davis out of Western Michigan is a little extra goodie bag at the end of the party, if you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Big extra goodie bag. But honestly, right now, I was actually talking to Mike about this the other day. He thinks Mike Evans has the potential to have the best season out of any of the top 5 receivers.
Oh, yeah, I went
league.
bold in my fantasy
Yeah.
draft for him. I had the 4th overall pick, pass on OBJ and Julio to get Mike Evans.
Can't go wrong with Evans.
I like Tampa Bay a lot. Like you said, O.J. Howard really adds that depth. I really like O.J. Howard. Deshaun Jackson's explosive downfield. Mike Evans is just Mike Evans. He'll do anything you want him to do.
O.J. Howard was a snag for the Buccaneers. He was
And
a real
honestly,
snag.
I saw a lot of spark last season from Jarquez Rodgers, as you mentioned. Doug Martin is out, but let's be real. It's not like it's fantasy football 3 years ago, Doug Martin.
Yeah, that's
like
the
I'm
thing with Doug
saying,
Martin. Like
Doug Martin.
I really believe in Doug Martin. I'm a huge Doug Martin
Yeah.
guy. Go muscle hamster. But like, I think like if he just gets his head straight and like one can stay healthy and two just focus on football and like relax because like we keep hearing all these off field issues, locker room issues, all this stuff. Like he's a top 5 running back in his league, I believe. Like I just feel like he has a size, not really the size, but he has a speed, he has a strength to be a top 5 running back in his league. But he obviously doesn't want to be. So if he doesn't want to be, he's not.
Yeah. So we have Taylor picking Jameis in the situation. Mike, who do you have winning this? Do you think it's Mariota or do you think it's Jameis too?
My heart really says Jameis. I love Jameis a lot this year, but I'm gonna say Mariota.
You're having a heart gut situation too?
Yeah, I'm having a heart gut
It's just a
situation.
very,
Are you having a confession?
it's a very emotional day here.
He's having a
TFL.
confession.
It's a really sad day. I'm just gonna be listening to Drake after
In my
this.
booth.
But I'm gonna go Marcus Mariota just to spice up the conversation a little bit. But no, I just like where the Titans are headed with everything. I like how they're really deep in running backs. That's the thing that scares me with the Bucs. Like while like the way that they play offense is a backyard style because that's the kind of quarterback Jameis is. Like their running backs kind of scare me because when it comes to later in the season when you have to actually establish a run game if you want to be a top 5 offense in this league, if Doug Martin's not getting it done like he hasn't been for the last couple of years, Jarquez Rodgers ain't getting it done for you on the ground. He's more of a receiver back. You slot him out. You give him the ball through the passing game. You don't really give him the ball through the rushing game. So that's where I give the Titans the advantage. They have one of the better offensive lines in the league. They have DeMarco Murray and Derrick Henry as running backs. That's a very good duo. Derrick Henry's going to start getting more and more workload, which is good because DeMarco Murray can't have all these 300-yard carry seasons in the next year. Like he'll just be bad because that's how like it's been going for his whole career. So I just like where the Titans are headed. I just feel like Mariota has. I think Jameis might win it numbers wise, but I think impact wise and what he will do for his team this year, I think Mariota, really takes that step up for the Titans, and I really like him to be an underdog in AFC South and maybe win it. But I don't know if they'll win it, but I think Mariota gives them a really, really, really good shot. I just feel like everything's just perfect. It's a nice little glove. It fits right on.
I'm gonna go with Jameis here, just because right now some weird feeling just sparked inside me that we had the Panthers go to the Super Bowl 2 years ago.
Yeah,
the
I keep
Falcons go
thinking
to the
that.
Super Bowl last year. And now we have Jameis Winston and the Buccaneers. Now listen, the NFC South still looks pretty good. The Panthers could easily pick just as they did fall down.
You always have Drew Brees.
You always have Drew Brees, who's the best quarterback of all time. And then you have the Atlanta Falcons, who honestly they didn't really lose too much this offseason, and there's no reason to really believe they would go down, except for a few things. And I think Jameis, honestly, like he's got the receiving core. His offensive line is good enough, and I think he's just got this poised element to him that will make me forget about some incident at a Publix store a couple years ago. But yeah, that's what I feel about that. Anyways, we're gonna go on to one last quarterback matchup, and this one I'm a little more excited to talk about this one.
Yeah.
It's gonna be Carson Wentz versus Dak Prescott, the two NFC East rookies from last year. Definitely different, had polar opposite years in terms of statistics. Dak Prescott led his Cowboys to the playoffs, the seed, was able to miss the wild card game, killed it, didn't even throw an interception until like around halfway through the year. Carson Wentz played to 16 touchdowns, 14 interceptions. He had some ups and downs, but then again, that's what you expect from a Division II, from a Bison, and it's too much Wentz Bros outdoors for him. So
Too much fun Spurs outdoors.
Now this year,
Can we talk about that show for a second?
No, we're not. We're gonna talk about.
I want a review on it. Like, where can I get it? Where can I get a link for that? Actually.
Oh yeah, just on his Twitter page somewhere. Anyways, so what happens is Carson this year is gonna have a little bit more of a better chance. Last year, his offensive line was a little inconsistent. You always had different starters. Lane Johnson being suspended. Your best wide receiver was maybe Jordan Matthews.
Your best wide receiver was someone who really can't make plays for you past 20 yards downfield. If you think, think about it. I'm not wrong.
While Dak did have Terrence Williams, Des Bryant, Cole Beasley, Jason Witten, the Cowboys' offensive line
line,
and Ezekiel
Zeke.
Elliott. Now, it's not to say Dak is a bad quarterback.
He's a good quarterback.
I liked watching at Mississippi State, and I also love watching Zeke and Ohio State. And to see them both go on the Cowboys is just horrible. But Dak, I think he honestly does have the poise, and even without Zeke, I think he's still going to have a good year. And Carson, now he has Alshon Jeffrey. He's got Torrey Smith. He's got Nelson Aguilar.
He's got Matt Collins.
No, but he's got Matt Collins does look nice in the preseason, but the offense has definitely been a lot more restructured for Carson. Now he has a few more running backs to play around with. He's got Garrett
A lot
Blount,
more running
Wendell
backs to play
Smallwood,
around with.
Donald Pumpwell. Let's stay with Darren Sproles
Yeah, let's
for
just
now.
stay away with Donnell Pumphrey.
And his
for a
final
year.
season, too. Got to give it up for Sproulsy.
Yeah,
former
it's a
Charger.
Pharaoh
Former
Sproles.
Charger and K-State Wildcat.
So,
Yeah.
Mike, given the whole splurge of information I just spouted out, who's going to win this competition this year?
All right, I'm not saying this because I'm an Eagles fan. I'm gonna be straight up with you. It's Carson Wentz. Now it's just the way it's set up. The offensive line, finally, we know who the 5 starters are going to be, and we know by week 5 those are still going to be the 5 starters. Last year we're like, oh, it's going to be all fun and games, and as soon as Lane Johnson gets suspended, we're screwed. And what happened? As soon as Lane Johnson couldn't play anymore, he was screwed. Or the Eagles are screwed. So I just like that whole element of it. The offensive line hasn't looked great in the preseason, but I mean, I'm just gonna be straight up honest with you. It's preseason. The Detroit Lions went 4-0 in the preseason years back, and they went 0-16 in the regular season. So that's just good. That just shows you how much it's worth. But I just feel like the offensive line is gonna look a lot better. While the running back situation might not look extremely better compared to last year, there's a lot more depth when it comes to the running back position. There's a lot more names to throw in there. It's not like Wendell Smallwood is really your second best back and Ryan Matthews is pretty much worthless. I mean, you have LeGarrette Blount, you can definitely get into rhythm. It's not like he doesn't have any talent. You got to do. You just got to get there. And I just like to upgrade on the wide receiver position. The chemistry in the beginning is going to be a little off, but I just feel like it's going to catch up, and this offense can do a lot of great things. And considering the whole Zeke suspension, I don't know how that's going to play out. He might not miss those 6 games. He might miss only half that. He might do this. I don't even know anymore. And the offensive line, they got a couple people in and out of the revolving offensive line revolving door. And you got an aging Jason Witten. And honestly, outside of Des Bryant, they don't have any consistent receivers. So they played really good last year, but will they do the same exact thing this year? You never know.
I want to talk to you guys about something.
Okay.
Does this seem like a coincidence to you whatsoever? Christian Ponder was 12th overall in the 2011 draft. RG3 and Ryan Leaf were each the second in 2012 and 98. Vince Young, number 3 in 2006. Johnny Football, number 22 in 2014. What do all of those guys have in common?
So they're not in the NFL.
They're not in the NFL anymore. As in, they didn't last in the NFL. They weren't poised to be a starter. They weren't meant to be a starter, honestly, at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm going to name 3 guys right here, see if any of these 3 guys ring a bell. Russell Wilson, Aaron Rodgers, and Tom Brady, and Dak Prescott, the 4th. What do they all have in common? They got drafted after the 2nd and 3rd round.
I have no idea who any of these guys are.
Well, that to me says a lot about quarterbacks who are drafted later in rounds. Now, Mike, it's hard for me to disagree with you right now because I think Carson Wentz's situation is better. However, a lot of people I think are weighing too much on Ezekiel Elliott. I think the Cowboys are in a good situation. I don't think they'll win the division this year. I'm not saying that, and I don't have the evidence to back up a Cowboys NFC East title this year. But Dak Prescott was fantastic last season. It's all a matter of can he keep his head on straight, and we've seen it. We've seen successful rookie quarterbacks have these great years, and then it just declines. Robert Griffin III, I hate to beat it in the ground, but Robert Griffin III is a prime example of that. It's all a matter of if he stays healthy, if he keeps his head on straight. You do have a point, though, Mike. I'll get you there. The receiving core in Dallas is not as strong as it used to be. Running back position does concern me. Obviously, Ezekiel Elliott is not there. We're still waiting to hear if he will play in Week 1. Obviously, he appealed the suspension. So when I look at it right now, I think Carson Wentz will have the better year right now. But Dak Prescott's in a great system in Dallas, and I have a lot of faith in him having another big year in the NFL. It's just a matter of if Jerry Jones can keep his golden boy on the horse, And
I necessarily don't think Carson wins this matchup purely because he's better than Dak. Well, yes, I do think he's better than Dak. Dak is very close behind him. They're really close in talent level and what they do for their team. But I just look at the whole Dallas Cowboys, just roster and just how this whole offseason went. Number one story, the whole offseason was pretty much Zeke. Then on defense last year, I mean, while we wanted to say their defense was awful last year, it really wasn't that bad.
They make tackles.
Exactly. They're the fourth rushing defense last year too, but they lost all their starting secondary. Most of their front seven's either injured, suspended, or they lost a decent amount of them. And it's just you're going into the season, the Cowboys, and it's like, okay, last year we're 13-3, but you look at every single position on the board. Okay, none of it's the same besides running back and quarterback. But wait, our running back might be suspended for the first 6 games. You know what I'm saying? Like, they had a really nice draft class. They got 3 young rookie cornerbacks, but they're not going to make an impact day one. One of them might, not all 3 of them, most likely not 2 of them, unless they hit it right on unless they hit the hammer right on the nail. But I mean, it's just the way this Cowboys team just looking at coming this season. It looks like sort of everything's a little bit different than the whole, nobody repeats an NFC East since the 04 or 03-04 Eagles. It's just everything's just slowly going down. You know where it's going on. While you're looking at Carson Wentz's situation in Philly, everything's just going up. It's just trending up for Philly.
I'm going to have to pick Dak Prescott on this one as much as it hurts my heart. And I think, actually, contrary to what you guys were saying with the receiving corps going down, I think with Zeke actually being suspended, the Cowboys might be, and the defense actually losing so many players, the offense may be forced to, start scoring a lot more points every game, which might lead to a lot more opportunities in the passing game. But the thing is, oh, wait, Zeke's not here. I mean, sure, you still have Darren McFadden, and is Alfred Moore still in the squad?
Yeah, Alfred Moore's still in the squad. I don't know why they're not
so
giving him more
those
stuff.
2 guys, you still have some, good... You have 2 starting running backs, not going to lie. But I do think, honestly, that this is the year... And honestly, I drafted Dez Bryant second round in, fantasy this year just because, I was I believe this year Dez Bryant's going to make a comeback because it's going to be Dak's second year. The running back situation is still a little iffy. The defense is going to suck. And I feel like the Cowboys are going to be in a lot of, 41-34 type games, 38-35. And I think that right there gives Dak the opportunity to just maybe flood out and get mad stats this year. He could have completely different stats than last year instead of just, this many touchdowns but so few interceptions. It could literally be, 35 touchdowns, 12 picks, just because, it could just be that crazy of a change for the Cowboys. It is still a very run-oriented offense, but I think, with the whole running and defense situation, it gives Dak the opportunity. Anyways, that caps it off for the NFL QB merry-go-round we just had right here. I just had a great time.
That was a fun little rider.
Let's talk about a lot of people. I'm done. If I see a football now, I'm just going to go crazy. But let's move it on now to the NBA for one last final segment. And let's move it on to one last segment as we talk about some good old-fashioned NBA. And the main headline we got going on this week happened in Cleveland and in Boston. Celtics and Cavs made a trade, and this time the Celtics received Kyrie Irving in exchange for Jay Crowder, Isaiah Thomas, Andre Zizic, a 2018 first-round pick, and a 2020 second-round pick. That was a mouthful.
And a washer.
That was a washer, 2 pennies.
And a Maine lobster while they're at it.
It was a lot. Taylor, as a Celtics fan, I know you've got a lot to say about this. So I'm going to start with you, my man. You take your time, take a breather, and you come into the room whenever you're ready. No, just start.
Well, I think, obviously, I'm going to say the Celtics won this. But if you really look into this at the present moment, the Celtics do, I think, win this trade. You had Isaiah Thomas, obviously 29 years old. His contract was coming up next year. I think it was pretty evident that we would have had to deal with that eventually, but we chose to deal with it earlier rather than later. We would have had to max IT anyway. The way I look at it is you dump Isaiah Thomas, you dump Jay Crowder. Jay Crowder, I'll give you that. I mean, he did have a great year shooting the ball, hitting 39.8% of his threes on 5.5 attempts, averaging. Defense was a whole. He was great. I mean, rebounding. A Celtics team that really got beat up by the Cavs at the boards last year in the Eastern Conference Finals really was not great at rebounding. It's all a matter of, one, if he can really come around. Obviously, Isaiah Thomas, it's sad to see him go, but he was going to go, in my opinion, anyway. I think you dump Isaiah. You get to keep everyone. I mean, big emphasis on you pretty much keep everyone.
All the young guys.
Like.
That's the key.
And
for
I
the
think
Celtics,
that's
so
the seller right there. I mean, honestly, when I look at it, Kyrie Irving is the replacement for Isaiah Thomas. You dump a lot. But at the end of the day, I'll take Kyrie Irving. He was third in the playoffs in points per possession. I mean, out of isolation, he was like the most effective player in the NBA last season. Isaiah Thomas actually was ahead of Kyrie Irving in overall performance, I thought, but just career-wise, I'm sorry, I'm taking Kyrie Irving. And to
It's
play the
just the way it
playoffs,
sets
too.
up. Yeah.
And listen, Isaiah's a great player, but it's a matter of if the 5'9" guard can play defense, they're going to need him to turn up a lot in the playoffs. You can have Isaiah Thomas in the regular season, but at the end of the day, I mean, he needs to show up in the playoffs as he did last year. It's just a matter of if he does it in Cleveland. And honestly, how he fits with probably the best player ever, who knows, LeBron James. You know?
Mm-hmm. I think Isaiah Thomas really takes up the same role Kyrie played. It's just I don't know how much of the defensive end he can cover that they're missing from Kyrie. Now, granted, Kyrie wasn't the greatest defender. He wasn't even close to a decent one, I guess. But Isaiah Thomas isn't even in that realm. Like I hate to break it to you, but he's too short to play defense. It's just a fact of life. He is just way too short to play defense. I mean, so when you're on the Cavaliers now and you're gonna have to cover Steph Curry, I mean, Kyrie could at least give him a challenge. Isaiah Thomas isn't doing that.
Yeah, and the Cavaliers had the 22nd ranked defense last year. As good as the Cavaliers were, defensively not very good. When I look at Isaiah Thomas, he was dead last amongst point guards in DRPM last season, and at his size, obviously, it's a concern. He's a fantastic player, and I'll reiterate, I mean, it hurts to see him go, but at the end of the day, I don't mind dumping Isaiah Thomas. The Cavaliers are likely going to need Thomas's scoring, but I mean, they may find themselves in a bit of an awkward position if Isaiah Thomas doesn't work out. Like we were talking about this week, Mike, you made a great point. It's a matter of what Cleveland does with this. The Celtics have already done
because
what
they obviously have to build on this because there is a chance LeBron is leaving next year. There's a high chance. There's a very high chance.
He could stay, but it's a possibility.
If I'm Dan Gilbert and company, I'm not making this trade and be like, okay, we're good right there. We got a pick. We got Boston's best defender. You know, we downgrade a little bit from Kyrie, but not too much. Then we got an overseas player who we don't know we're going to get. You got to build off that. I've been hearing reports that they might try to flip that Nets pick, you know, and trying to get Boogie, DeMarcus Cousins, trying to get him from New Orleans.
It's a question of how long could you sign DeMarcus Cousins, though?
I mean, here's the thing: if they get DeMarcus Cousins with that pick, now you have LeBron who might leave next year, Isaiah Thomas who's 30 years old, 5'9", and he wants a max contract. Then DeMarcus Cousins who just can't get along with anybody, quite frankly, even though he's really lovable. I don't know how that works, but it's just that's another fact of life. So it's just that will just bring in a lot more questions for Cleveland.
Yeah,
Really.
And honestly, I think Kyrie can fit into the system. I think he's going to be great passing. And there was a lot of sloppiness.
I mean, when people are saying, like, oh, well, he doesn't pass the ball a lot. Well,
no,
I
honestly think the opposite. I think this is a great opportunity
I think
him.
he's a great all-around offensive player. It's not like he's a Kobe type where he has the Mamba mentality where he's like, oh, my God, as soon as I touch the ball, I just, like, want to score 40 points in one play. Kyrie Irving's like, okay, when I touch the ball, I'm just going to see if I can cross someone up. If not, like, it'll work out. But I feel like Kyrie's a lot smarter than we give him credit for. Yeah. He's a lot smarter offensive player than we give him credit for.
And I don't know if you saw the welcoming interviews for Kyrie Irving and Gordon Hayward. It was quite evident the two get along.
Oh, they're buddies. It was a nice, cute little friendship.
It was cute.
Yeah,
it
was nice.
Great. That was the perfect. I was honestly, I don't know if I could use a better word than cute.
Yeah, that was pretty.
It was
cute,
adorable,
yeah.
but it's good to see the fact that Kyrie is finally getting along. He likes the system. Brad Stevens is a great coach. I think he can rack up 15 to 20 assists in a game. I mean, easily.
Yeah, like
per game around 15
Kyrie
to 20.
Irving can definitely pass
that
the ball.
Adds a lot.
Like,
yeah.
I mean,
and he's gonna score.
Yeah, like it's. I really don't. I don't understand what this whole dilemma that, like, oh, Kyrie Irving's just an ISO player. Like, I think, like, under the right coach, under the right system, like, if you give him the keys to an offense, he'll lead an offense. Like in Cleveland, he didn't have to lead an offense; he just had to score. He was just Mr. Buckets on that offense. LeBron James, like, all right, I'll get a triple double, but I need someone to get buckets with me. And Kyrie's like, I got you.
Honestly,
he doesn't have to do that.
At the end of the day, I mean, regular season gets you in position, but it's just worth noting 25.2. Averaging a game points regular season, the highest he's ever averaged in any regular season. Now, I mean, playoffs is a whole nother ball game we're talking about here, but at the end of the day, I mean, I'm going to take Kyrie Irving. He was averaging 25.9 in the playoffs, 25.2 the year before. I don't really see any decline. I mean, Al Horford needs to show up.
He's only going
That's
up.
another talk, but Al Horford needs to show up.
All right, so final question. You can reflect this question to me right after you're done giving your answer. Can the Celtics beat the Cavaliers and say the Eastern Conference Finals that they meet there, whenever they meet in the playoffs? Do you think the Celtics can overcome the Cavaliers and make it to the finals?
It all depends on seeding and where that Game 7's played. I think they can easily force 7. You want my honest opinion? I think they can force a Game 7. If it's in Boston, I favor the Celtics just because the Celtics are great at home in Game 7s. But if it's in
Parquet.
Cleveland, it's kind of at the old TD Garden. But honestly, it all depends on where the game is being played. I don't think they can. Honestly, dude. It's just at the end of the day, it's LeBron James in the playoffs. Kyle Korver is still there. I mean, Jay Crowder, he's going to be great defensively. I will admit it is a bit of a stab in the back. Most of the team's still there. I mean, and honestly, I don't think LeBron, especially considering this could be his last year in Cleveland, I don't see LeBron really flushing anything down the toilet.
Oh,
this year.
he's going all out since it might be his last.
And I
year
think
in
it's
Cleveland.
personal. Obviously, Kyrie and Boston now could get a little personal. I definitely see a Boston-Cleveland rematch. I definitely see that.
Oh, I feel like that's inevitable.
I could see the East being fun this year, though. I could see the Sixers grabbing up a 7
It's going to be
or 8
interesting to
this
see
year.
with these because you see a lot of new teams. You see a lot of new stuff.
So, final thoughts. Who won this trade?
I think at the end of the day, it all depends on what they do with it. I think Boston wins it right now. Obviously, they get Kyrie Irving, a prime scorer. They get a younger guy. They get IT off his contract. They dump Jay Crowder, and that's a shame. But at the end of the day, they keep the young talent. Brad Stevens still there. You get Gordon Hayward in the offseason. Al Horford adds to that. I think Boston wins this right now.
Michael?
I'm going Cleveland. I think the big part in this trade for me is like they get that Nets pick. We don't know what the Nets are going to be in a weak Eastern Conference. They still could be a top 5 pick. But I think the big part for me, which really is like, okay, Cleveland won this trade, is they get Jay Crowder. I was really expecting maybe to get Jay Crowder and either Jaylen Brown or Jason Tatum, but they only got Ante Zizic. But hey, you got to live with what you can get. But who is covering LeBron if you're the Celtics? Because right now your best defender is Marcus Smart. So, I mean, they took away the Celtics' best defender. They took away a few picks, and they can definitely do something with those picks. And while, I mean, Isaiah Thomas, isn't as good as Kyrie, but playing with LeBron, his game will be elevated a little bit more. I mean, he might have to miss the first half of the season. He might not play until the All-Star break. That's a story for a different day. That's still fluctuating. We don't know what's going on with that. But I just feel like Cleveland definitely wins this because no one is covering LeBron on the Celtics now because Gordon Hayward is decent defensively, but I don't think he's good enough to cover LeBron. And honestly, Marcus Smart's your best chance at covering LeBron, and he's only a point guard.
Yeah.
So I mean, and the Cavaliers are now rolling into the finals, with LeBron. Then they got Jay Crowder. Defensively, they got Isaiah Thomas who can score just like Kyrie. I mean, defensively might not be as good, but he can score just like him. So I mean, the Cavs are still looking pretty good, and they got some picks they can flip, or who knows, draft a superstar. So I say right now the Cavs.
Going to be a very interesting season to see it all play out. But for now, ladies and gentlemen, I think we've had that. We're just going to hit you with one quick news brief, and then we're going to call it a happy and safe night. And now time for a Minute with Moss. The Little Caesars Arena, new home to the Detroit Red Wings, opened up on Tuesday. The $863 million stadium is part of a larger project known as District Detroit. The development is focused on housing, job opportunities, and restructuring Detroit's urban areas. CEO Christopher Illich commented on the opening that we put our heart and soul into something truly spectacular for the people of the city, state, and region. Tillman Fertitta, a Houston businessman, has bought the Houston Rockets for a hefty price of $2.2 billion. Once a courtside seat fan for several years now, Fertitta has achieved his dream of being a Rockets owner. While the sale is still pending with the NBA General Board, chances are is that he'll most likely own the team by the start of the season. After a week of taking donations for Hurricane Harvey victims, J.J. Watt has accrued $20 million. The initial goal of $200,000 was broken in 2 hours, and people have donated tremendously to his water relief fund. When the donation surpassed $10 million, Watt let the donations continue. The money itself will be used for relief efforts for the victims in Houston. That's going to do it for tonight. Gentlemen, before we go, any final thoughts you want to say?
Go Owls, beat Nova.
Go Owls beat Nova, and the NFL is here, gentlemen.
Go
Red zone and chill.
Yeah. I think
definitely.
red zone and chill.
Yeah,
I think
definitely
that's
red zone
very
and chill.
much in order. Patriots are raising banner number 5. I'm sorry. You should all be there to see it, though. It's going to be great. I'm looking forward to it.
Go Blake Bortles. Go Jay Cutler. Go Brock Osweiler.
Go Jake Delhomme.
Go Jake Delhomme. Go Drew Brees. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Join us next time as we will have a bunch of other stuff to annoy you with. And it's been great. So be sure to follow us on Twitter at TFL Sports Talk, and be sure to follow us at our website at thefirstlinepodcast.wordpress.com. We're going to work on that domain, ladies and gentlemen. Don't worry about it. Thank you very much. Please join us next time.